What is going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for tuning back into today's video, but I'm going to go ahead and provide you guys with a stock market update and let you guys know exactly how my trading went. So let's jump right into it. And so as you guys can see, I was down, on the day overall, my account, right? Down $136 on the day. As far as how I did trading wise, I only traded SQs and TQs today. I made $50 on SQs and $150 on TQs, right? So I made $200 overall, right, day trading today, but I did use $30,000. So I wasn't actually able to hit my 1% daily goal, which would equate to $300, right? And so although I wasn't able to hit it, right, nonetheless, I am super grateful and super blessed to end green, right? Because if I ended red today, the account would have taken a really nice loss today, right? Because on top of the 200 I, was able to make back, the account just alone for my overall long-term holds would have been down, over $300. And so Tesla itself was down $182 for me today, and Rivian itself right down $150. And so with Rivian, I don't have nearly as much money invested as I do in Tesla. So the $150 loss was definitely much more of a significant drop for Rivian compared to Tesla, right? It's just that I have more money in Tesla. That's why I took a bigger loss, right? So as you guys can see, these are all my filled orders. Started trading at 6:30 as usual, right? And I didn't stop until 7:35. So I really only traded for about an hour today. And compared to yesterday, I definitely took a lot less orders, right? Or actually, I had a lot less filled orders. So, I definitely had a much more of a productive day trading compared to yesterday. But let me go and actually explain how I was able to make my money today. And so what I pretty much saw going on was the Nasdaq was just trading sideways, right? Kind of unclear which way direction was headed. And so on the bigger time frames, what I was noticing was that, there was potential for this thing to try to find a support around here and try to continue, pushing up, right? So I thought that would be a possibility, but ultimately I knew that Jerome Powell was going to give a speech 30 minutes after the market opened. So I wasn't really going to try to be trading while he was giving the speech in case, big movement happened. And so, ultimately, as you guys can see, right at 6:30 when the report came out, this thing ended up dropping like crazy, right? So you see the Nasdaq ended up selling off. And so I initially, right, when the Nasdaq started to push up, was able to make money on TQs. But what ultimately ended up happening, this thing started to change direction, and I ended up trying to predict where this thing would end up bouncing. And so I literally gave back all the profit I made on TQs and was entering the red, just trying to predict where this thing would find a bottom. And so I eventually ended up deciding, that wasn't the best way to go. I ended up cutting my position, and I was down, about $100 on TQs. And so I decided on this last pushy, right, that I was going to get into SQs. And so since I saw, the candle still descending, right, I decided to take a quick trade on SQs, but I only got in with a 25% position size because I knew that this thing ultimately, right, was very oversold at this point, right? We had gapped up so much down that I thought there was potential for this thing to find a support and for there to be a nice TQ play, right? So that's why, as you guys can see on SQs, I only made, about $50. And so it wasn't even 1%, right, that I wrote down with a 25% position size. And so ultimately, once it did end up selling off, I was very patient and I waited for a potential play to form, right? So I saw this thing start to finally bounce here, pushed on down, finally bounced, right? And so on this push up, I was writing it up in TQs, but ultimately where I made the most money was once I waited for this thing to peak out, pull on back, it was getting rejected. Once we finally broke above the EMA, I got in heavy again here, locked in majority of my trade as it approached the middle VWAP, right? And then I decided to call it a day there. So that's pretty much where I ended up finishing my trading for the day, right? I made a little bit of money on this SQs fall here, but a lesson to be learned is to not try to predict where this thing is going to eventually bottom out. You got to wait for more of an indication, right? So if I hadn't taken the loss on the way down trying to predict the bottom, right, and I managed to ride this thing up the way I thought it would potentially play out, right, I could have ended in the green much more, right, over 1% on the day. But because of that mistake, right, it ultimately cost me, lots of money. And so I just need to learn from those mistakes heading into the rest of the week. But that was a really nice play that ended up playing out right from the bottom to where it ended up, pushing back up. There was a potential 3% move on TQQQ since the ETF is triple leverage, right? And so once it got rejected, right, it was pretty much just ended up selling off the remainder of the day. And so, where do I think we're headed? So on the bigger time frames, it's no question that any single time, so we had a nice rally, and then we eventually ended up getting overextended and starting to sell off, right? So now anytime we break above the EMA, do you guys notice that we pull on back, we break above, we pull on back, right? So we broke above, and now we're pulling on back, right? So, do I see potential for this thing to continue selling off and even breaking the support level? That's obviously a possibility, right? I'm not going to be naive to that. I obviously just added, yesterday to more of my long-term positions. And because of that, it would be in my best interest for the NASDAQ to continue to climb, right? But I have to be real with myself, right? And real with you guys and look out for you guys. And this thing realistically has been struggling to hold above the EMA. And so now that we did break below it, chances are this thing can continue to fall. Doesn't mean it has to, right? For all I know, we could actually find a support and, see a pop the remainder of the week. But we just really have to be careful, right? Because, in the past, what the past has been showing is that we have been, struggling to hold above the EMA. And so now that we were, pushed above it and are already breaking below, it's not necessarily the best sign for us, right? And so, yeah, that's ultimately everything I did want to discuss with you guys. I hope you guys found this informative in any way. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I hope, you guys are able to learn from the mistake I made today of not trying to predict the bottom and really waiting for true confirmation for this thing to sell off, start to bounce, break above the EMA. It could pull on back, right? And there's a nice potential setup for this push here. And so that's everything I want to leave you guys with. I am excited to follow up and see how the rest of the week goes, right? Whether or not the NASDAQ is going to end up, trying to find a support and pushing up, or if we are going to continue to sell off. But, either way, we'll just, as day traders, right, follow up with it day by day. But thank you guys so much for your time. If you guys did find any of this informative, it really does help us out a lot if you drop a like and subscribe. But other than that, if you guys have any questions at all, anything stock related, you want me to break down any stock for you, just go ahead and drop a comment, and I will be more than happy to do that in my next video. But thank you guys so much again. I will see you guys in tomorrow's recap. Take care.